Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to another episode of The Ways We Move, the podcast that highlights innovative mobility solutions and the people behind them. My name is Nicolas Zart, and I am your host on this podcast, and I'm very excited to bring my personal 20 years of experience in innovative mobility solutions, where I get to talk to the people I've known for many years, the movers and shakers of our industry, and the experts that make all of these industry happen. Well, basically, they're shaping the future of our mobility experience. And today, I can't think of a better person than Toni Drummond to invite again to this. Well, again, for the first time, but she'll be back many times on this podcast. I've met Toni about 3-4 years ago, and I've always loved her enthusiasm, her dynamism, and also not only the fact that she is a woman in and predominantly male industry, she is part of that women in mobility segment that we're so excited about having here on this podcast, but because she also brings 20 or more years of experience in the business jet world, the operations part of the world of the industry, and right into advanced air mobility with her new company called Future Flight Global. So without further ado, we'll let Toni introduce herself, and then we'll talk about, basically what is happening in the industry, what is the role of operations, and how does an operation company work? How does it integrate traditional aviation with this new means of mobility using electric motors, which we now call advanced air mobility? Hope you like this one. Please like, subscribe, and of course, share with those who might be interested in this podcast, those who are interested in understanding what is happening, what is currently happening in the industry, and how will we move about tomorrow. And in the meantime, well, let's hear it from Toni. Thank you all. Well, Toni, welcome to The Ways We Move. I should say welcome back because we've had a bit of time zones problems, mostly on my side, but welcome to The Ways We Move, the podcast that highlights innovative mobility solutions. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I've been just waiting for the last few months to have you on the podcast. So please, Toni, introduce yourself. Who is Toni?
So nice to finally be here, Nicholas, and support this. I'm really proud of all the work you're doing here. So, who is Toni Drummond? I am a lot of different things, but at heart, I'm an aviator. I am someone who's been in the business aviation side of things for a long time, about over 25 years. And today we're talking about my main new focus, which is Future Flight Global, is our emerging aviation company, which is we're going to be an operator, going to be deploying electric and sustainable aircraft. So it's been a huge, journey for me working through business aviation. I got my start at Teterboro Airport in the mid
Yeah.
1990s, and I jumped right into corporate and business aviation and built my way through sales and operations. And I just really fell in love with it when I was a very young gal. And my career has since taken some interesting turns as I've hit around 2020 and started to really get involved and interested in emerging technologies where you and I met. That was really looking into drones and how are we going to electrify. So 5 years later, that's morphed into where we are now. And I am literally pinching myself to say, is this where we are? Because it's just been a beautiful transition, not easy for any of us, as we know.
No.
But really excited to finally get to what I believe 26 will hold, which is that past, present, and future collaboration so we can
Yeah.
really start to effectively use our airspace, coming from my perspective. So yeah, really excited to chat through some cool stuff with you today and share what we're up to and hear some industry perspectives from you, and happy to be here with you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Toni. Absolutely. Ditto. Same thing on this side. I've always enjoyed talking to you. I love the energy that you and I have. And also the other discussions that we have that are not always professional, but about our personal lives, our spiritual life. I'm just loving it. And you said something really interesting. I was just writing my predictions for 2026, spot on, just like you said, working together. Of course, we'll see a bunch of interesting things, but you know what? Disruptive technologies, it always happens the same way. So one of the things I'm very intrigued about, and I always love about you, and along a few other people in the industry is when you actually have, just like these people, you actually have an aviation background. Teterboro, by the way, I think not a lot of people know that it's one of the most busiest private aviation airports, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
to have a start there is really just drinking from the fire hose, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. And you know what's so interesting as we age and we look back on our careers, you sometimes find yourself going, what the heck was I doing there? Like, why was I there at that time and space? And
Yeah,
for me to grow up in that environment where it was, we had the dot com era and we had just
yeah,
private aviation was really starting to explode and people were starting to understand how to use the air effectively to get their
yeah,
time, when you're getting paid a certain amount of and you start to realize that time spent travel. So we really did a good job of starting to open up the market to understand that a little bit better back then. Something that also is very interesting is that throughout my career, little did I know working outside of New York City, which eventually took me into that corridor, the helicopter corridor. I was consulting for a really cool helicopter company for lots of years, and I got really into that space. And I started like around, say, 2010, 2012 to really look into that mobility space, that shuttle mobility. We started setting up shuttles. I was working with Blade at the time, which, I mean, how cool is
yes,
that? That
yep.
transformed into Joby purchasing them. So, helping them start to get acclimated to what this could possibly look like, crowd sharing. So, really, innovation for me, it's been about 10 to 15 years, I would say, on the horizon of not really knowing what I was working on at that time was going to bring me to where we are today. So, Nicholas, which is so fun, during a lot of this, there's a lot of us companies in the AAM space that are working on
Mm,
the IPP program. I know you're
yep,
familiar with that. Probably a lot of our listeners are here. And that's working with a bunch of states, different entities that are putting in some bids to hopefully get work with the FAA to move some of this forward. And it's so great because as I start sitting with these different states, I'm realizing, like, for me, when folks are starting to figure out, like, I wonder how we do this, it's so natural. I have this natural understanding of
yes.
the need of, at least the need of past and present. I don't quite have the whole need of future
That's
locked
normal.
in, but yeah, like, have a general idea
Yep.
of what could possibly happen in our ecosystems in our workplace to help accelerate this. So I just feel gifted, I feel blessed, and I feel like very lucky to be able to add my voice to the other amazing professionals and experts that are on these teams to help truly solidify some of what we're planning to do. It's really just wow. I didn't see this on my dance card this year, so it's been fun.
No, no, I joke and I actually have crystal balls and sometimes I bring it out on the podcast, but it's true. Like, 10 years ago, I never knew this was going to, I mean, I knew it was going to develop and I knew it was bound to happen, but not like this, right? So I
Yeah.
had an idea, but it was more of an embryonic idea. And you're right, if and in one sense, thank goodness I didn't know because it makes it all the more exciting. Every
That's right.
turn, sometimes wrong turns, like you said. Sometimes you meet the right people. Sometimes you meet the wrong people. Sometimes
Yeah,
you're in the right project or projects that just flop, but we still learn a lot and we
we
move
do.
forward. One of the things that I'm impressed with, especially in your case, is your background. You're an operator, so you understand one of the missing links we have had in advanced air mobility for a very long time that you started to address about a year or 2 years ago, and that's the operations side of it. So, for those who don't understand what operations means, can you sort of explain what it is and what your experience
Yeah.
is with that?
I mean, it's very clear when you think about it. When you look at Boeing, Boeing is manufacturing a plane for United or American, and we're getting on that aircraft. And it's United or American that's going to operate that aircraft on behalf. That's regulations and everything that it takes to actually operate the aircraft safely and efficiently and legally. And we use certain regulations, which are called 121 for those, Part 121, FAA Part 121. And for what we do in private aviation, we've been using FAA Part 135. So FAA Part 135 is going to be extended out for the AAM
Yes.
use cases as well. So obviously, as being a specialist in that regulatory sector, it's really easy for me to understand at least what we're doing now and what we've done in the past to try to integrate what we're going to be doing into the future. So what we're going to be seeing over time And we do have some OEMs in our space, like Archer and Joby, who also are going to be operators. That's a
Yes.
little bit strange in what we normally do in our airline environment. So this is new. This is something that is, in a lot of ways we're exploring how that airline and that's gonna what that crossover is gonna be. But at the end of the day, both Archer and Joby are also going to operate under the same regulations that FFG is going to operate under, the same operating certificates that we have, legal, the legal frameworks and the safety frameworks. And these are the frameworks that keep us safe and have kept us safe this whole entire time when everybody's up in the sky and you're eating your popcorn and you're watching your movie on the plane, you're going to visit your family. It's those same regulations that the FAA is putting forth to make sure that the safety level will be the same or
Yes.
better. So I want people to understand this isn't new. What's not new, it might be new in the way that we are powering these aircraft, but definitely not in the way that we're presenting them when they're bringing them forward. And that includes this rigorous, rigorous safety level that the
Yes.
FAA is requiring. It's going to be interesting, and you're going to see a lot more companies like
Yes.
Future Flight Global Operations that have 135 in this country that are going to be taking on aircraft for management. There's a lot of us right now, and those companies are going to start to shift their attention into electric mobility once they understand, what those models look like too. So there'll be multiple companies doing what we do, and we look forward to that. We need that in order to scale this industry. So we're a very FFG is an agnostic
Right.
company. We have orders in with lots of the different OEMs and for lots of different use cases. We're not just doing air taxi, we're doing,
No.
lots of different cargo and
Yeah.
tourism and different types of, need use spaces. So we have different aircraft that will fit those different needs, those different ranges, those different operating profiles. For us, it's going to be really exciting to get in to kind of lead the way with our OEM partners and try to carve through some of those maybe gray areas or areas that we haven't had to address before so we can safely and effectively do that. And they're excited to work with us. We're excited to work
Yes.
with them. And like we just chatted, 26 is, I think, the catalyst and the bridge of finally seeing a lot of this come to light. We're doing it on the back end, so we should be able to be starting to see it this year.
Gosh, you raised so many points I love, and I wish I could answer all of them and then talk about all of them. It's really hard to go, all right, well, let's talk about this. But you're right. One point that you made, and actually, it is nothing new, right? And even electric mobility is nothing that new. We've used electric motors for the past 150 years, not that new. However, applied to aviation, that's a different story. Yes, it is new,
Right.
but the operations, certification, and all of that follow
Hmm.
the same path. And of
That's
course,
right.
if you know anything about aviation, you wake up with safety in mind, you go to sleep with safety in mind. Primal directive, I guess, of
That's
sorts.
right.
You said also another thing. You're right. It isn't new because Boeing in the beginning was both manufacturer, operator, and I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, it did it all together, right? And the
Probably
infrastructure side
maintenance.
of it.
They
And
probably did everything to
everything. So they
start.
did
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Very much what Joby says that it wants to do, and that's totally
Hmm.
fine. I think the only
Sure.
thing that we're adding right now, and then you have Archer that kind of adopts a hybrid approach to it all. But then you also have people like you, people like hopefully more people will come on the scene. And this is one thing I love about you is you're not only agnostic, but you invite co-opetition, I'd like to call it. Let's not call it
Yes.
competition. In 10 years, it'll be competition, but right now it's co-opetition. But you're right.
Yeah.
We all need to work together. We all have to work together because
Yes.
even if Joby wants to fly on its own, operate on its own, there will come a time where it will have to land where we are, especially us on the infrastructure side. I think that's very important, right? And so, what do we do with it? We have to work with it, right? We all have to work together. That's the way it is. And I think you said it very well. And I think also another thing, too, the last point I wanted to make before we continue is you're right. 2026 is such an important year for advanced air mobility. Why? Because for so many years, we've been hearing about we'll be certified in 2025. It started. We'll be flying in 2026. Yes, on the prototype side of things, you're right. Airworthiness has been given out. It's working. And so now we're looking forward to the next step, which is, well, operations, commercial operations. And this is where you guys come in. I
Yes.
love your approach of being agnostic because we do need to work across the aisle. And it's such a plethora of different aircraft, and all of their operational envelopes are so they're similar, but then they encroach on one another, right? Whether you're talking about SkyDrive's 3-seater all the way up to whenever we'll have 40-seater eVTOLs, but
Hmm.
eSTOLs, eCTOLs, and of course drones. So how do you guys see all of this acting out right now? How do you position yourself? Because you're the lone writer right now, and I'm sure you know others are coming behind you at one point or another, right?
I wouldn't say we're the lone rider. There's definitely other folks looking into it. I think my vantage point from looking at it from people are going to see my vantage point, and so Karan, my partner as well, we're from the BizAv community. So we're going to have that lens on it, where if you look at it from that lens, over my past history of my life, I've operated a fleet of aircraft. It might have had a couple Gulfstreams, we might have had a handful of Cessnas, or we might have had, Dassault, different types of models, Learjet. And so I might have an 8-seater Learjet and an 8-seater Beechcraft. Both have different mission profiles, and both are used for different types of things, and they're interchangeable on some, and on some they're not, depending on their range and fuel stuff. So when you just kind of, again, it doesn't have to be this catastrophic, like we're reinventing the wheel, like let's get crazy into it. Some of this, when we talk about air taxi individually and how we're going to be connecting the airline industry, moving into that, I love. Like I love the Joby
Yes.
and the Archer. Like I love that's going to put a different spin on kind of how we do things. But in reality, that's perfectly fine. We're going to have a lot of aircraft that we're managing, which is not uncommon for an aviation company to manage multiple different types of aircraft. And again, if I know that we're using an aircraft that has a 60-mile or 100-mile range, and then I also have an aircraft that has a 250-mile range, I'm going to accordingly make sure that we apply that. And depending on what that use case is, remember, a lot of what FFG
Right.
is doing too is we're managing aircraft on behalf of other companies. You may be a hotel that says we're purchasing 10 aircraft because we want to start interchanging on our campuses. You'll bring your aircraft to FFG. We'll do leasing models with you. We'll work. We'll do all the groundwork and do the operation for you. So you just show up and proceed. That's similar to a model that we have now in business aviation, but we're going to
Yes.
change it in order to apply these aircraft slightly. So my point is that we've done this. We know, we understand what
Right.
we're doing. We have to break into some of these new models to make them effective. But remember, there's also new models that, like helicopter models. We have so many gorgeous helicopter models that are amazing, but the sound profile is prohibitive, or something like that is prohibitive from that aircraft. So maybe we shift that model of aircraft over to doing some other type of service or work that makes better sense. And we put the noise sensitive aircraft into a space that can handle some of those routings. So again, this is just complementary in my mind and in FFG mind. We're complementing our airspace right now. Yes, we're working on creating multimodal things by 2040 or 50, autonomy, all this fun stuff. We're working on what that's going to look like. But in phase one, short term, we don't have to go completely berserk. We are going
No.
to be using some of the same infrastructure. And yes, while we're building vertiports and those landing stations, we can and we are using those current infrastructures like we had talked about in 2021, where we were getting a lot of kickback and heat from those conversations. But I love,
Yes.
and I love the way that we finally, as a community, said, Namaste, let's move forward. We're going to do this together. We're going to find that sweet spot. And remember, supporting one another throughout this is the success of the industry.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
not, to me, this is not a lone wolf type
No.
of success story. With all of us being successful, one of us is successful, we're all successful. And we're creating a new industry, a parallel industry. So it's very, very critical that we play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah, that's a great point you're making. I was just writing an article this morning about Electra Aero's dual use approach, and it's something that we've been talking about for many years. You guys have another way of looking at dual use, and in your case specifically, you do have a company that works as an operator with, private business jets and everything. And now you have FFG, Future Flight Global, that is going towards the AAM side of things. And so you guys are bridging that, and I can only think of one or two other companies that could do this. Most likely they're already thinking about it, right? But you guys are already well set up. So let's say me right now, I'm in
Yeah.
Savannah. I want to get to, I don't know, I want to get to Detroit, right? So what am I going to do? Well, to go to Atlanta, I most likely will need to have something that can get me there quickly. In this case, that could be FFG. But then from Atlanta to Detroit, then I need maybe a business jet. So you would be the perfect operator. Is that how you guys see this happening?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're working that through right now because there's no reason for us to stop what we currently do perfect. We perfected already. Are we going to be
Exactly.
focused on that? No. Our focus is going to be electric aircraft, but are we going to be able to accommodate other types of transportation, jet charters and shuttle services using current aircraft right now as we transition into new aircraft? Absolutely. That's what we do for a living anyway. So now we're going to start doing that and just blending in both sides. So we have current operating, safe operating, and then transitioning the future in. And again, if it doesn't fit in directly and exactly to what we do right now, then we're not able to do it. Like that's what the FAA is basically like, find a way to make this happen. And we can, and we have been. And it's not going to be, until we get to scale and we start talking about what that looks like and we start talking about autonomy, we're having different conversations. And there's so many groups planning for that. Just because
Yes.
my major focus is not on that today in 2025, we have teams that are thinking about what that looks like in 10 or 12 years, obviously, when we think about our strategy as a company. But right now, for what we need to do to get this over the edge in the next 24 months of really starting to show the public safe operations, it's a yes all the way around between all the OEMs, between us and the players that are now getting into certification processes. We all talk and we all are supportive of making sure that there's success all the way around.
Yeah, you make great points here. First of all, you're right. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't also need to develop a new wheel. It makes absolutely no sense. We have things that work really well right now. It's gotten us very far, and we can still go a little bit further. I don't know if you remember, but years ago when you and I met, there were still a lot of people who were so offended that advanced air mobility was hinting at replacing helicopters and airplanes. And we were like, whoa, 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 slow down there. No one's replacing anything. Battery
Right. There's
technology
no,
still, there's
yeah.
still a lot of ways to go before energy density, power density at the battery level means that we can fly across an ocean. That's not happening yet, and it won't happen hopefully before we're on wheelchairs, you and I, but hopefully it will happen. But that's not happening right now, and no one sees it like that. That was I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it's very interesting that I think there's just those are just marketing spins. Like never in my life when people come at me, they're like, helicopters. I'm like, love, so important.
Of
We need
course.
helicopters. This is not
Of
a
course.
replacement for helicopters. Are you kidding me? This is a
Of course.
complement. This is a complement to be able to do things in a more sustainable way in certain ecosystems. You think I'm sending
Yes.
an eVTOL in to scoop up water and put out fires and right here when fire season comes? Like, what are people talking
Nope.
about? Where are they coming up with this narrative? So again, just like everything else we see on fake news and real news and narrative, get behind the scenes and find out who's writing it and why. I have no, where we come from is super agnostic would be the word, but we're just sitting
Yes.
here in this very like Switzerland kind of area where I'm not
Well
interested in the
said.
politics. We're coming in to use all of the aviation assets as they're meant to be used.
Yep.
And we're
Absolutely.
complementing different areas with different machinery. How amazing is it that we're actually getting technology that can do that? So let's get rid of the narratives and all of that smoke and mirrors, and let's pull our
Yes.
sleeves up and get the work done. And that's what we're doing. You know who I am. Clearly, I have a lot of opinions and I'm not a quiet human. But you would laugh, Nicholas, to see me on some of these IPPs and some of these because I sit quietly in the background and I listen to the perfect, like, what is everyone's opinion? And a lot of it is wonderful and I love hearing it. And some of it is, I'm confused. I'm like, well, I wonder where that person got that information from. So there's just
Right. Right.
misinformation, like you said, based on what we've read or misinformation from 10 years ago that we still believe to be true. No, we're
You
doing
know,
this and we're going to move forward.
yeah, and I'm glad you said that because this year I sort of changed my my way of operating and all these events that we go to, we talk at. This year I started calling them out directly and I said,
The
and
echo
it's this
chambers.
very yeah. It's unlike my character. I mean, I'm more interested in focusing on the positive, what's working and everything. But
Yeah.
at one point or another, I told at the very last one we did, the eVTOL show USA in Palo Alto, everybody was there, right? The big four were there and everything. And I said, you guys, it's been great up until now, but you really need to now start talking about exactly what is happening and stop pitching it as a marketing pitch. Because I have people coming up to me and they say two things. We're flying right now. Well, yes, but not you and I. Well, this will never happen. And this kind of misunderstanding, confusion, if you wish, in the industry is not good, right? It's not good because eventually, sooner or later, they'll be disappointed in you. And that's not fair for everybody else. So I called them out. I said, when you do a press release and you say you're going to be certified by next year, tell what kind of certification it is and tell us about the roadmap and say, yeah, it's airworthiness. Okay, that's one thing. That's prototype. That's great. But commercial activities, we're still a few years away from that. And yes, we will see VVIP first. That's totally okay to say that. That's totally normal. Every disruptive technologies go through the same process all the time. Talk about your military experience because that drives the industry forward. So I'm glad that you're saying that because that's something that needed to happen. And you're right. I think 2026 is going to be a much more sobering year where we're going to start hearing the real thing, the real deal instead of the fluffy. I mean, how many times do we
And I'm
not
going to be
read?
honest with you. This might not resonate with a lot of your viewers, and there might be some people that disagree with me, but I'm going to defend our OEM partners here because, listen, what ends up happening is these folks put out a press release announcing press. Then we have everybody and their mother who decides to take that press release and interpret it as they see fit.
Right.
And
Good point.
who agreed to that interpretation? LinkedIn, all of our LinkedIn warriors that are just looking to get clicks. I know who you are. I purposely try not to click because I don't want to engage in false information sharing.
Yeah.
No one asked you to I feel like this is interpreted this way. Who asked you to reinterpret what they put out there and confuse the public with your reinterpretation? Let the public
Yep.
read it and interpret it as
Yep.
they see fit, Nicholas. So
Yep.
can we stop for 1 second putting
Yep.
the gun out at and it's not you and me because I know we agree on this. We've talked about this offline. We are always quick to jump on our OEMs, and those are the people out front that are paving the way for the rest of us, and they're
Yep.
trying their very best to bring
Yep.
accurate information forward to the best of their possible knowledge when they have other folks in charge of the systems of approval. We know when they're saying we're going to do it at this point, it's because they're told they're going to be doing it at that point. And anyone who's worked with any three-letter organization, there's no one
Yes.
to be put on the chopping block here. Anyone in the government ever. This is what we deal with. It's not new. So instead of attacking the folks that are doing everything every single day, let's go and put our blame throwers at the folks misinterpreting and sharing this garbage information on LinkedIn just to get people to like and jump in so everybody can add their 2 cents in something that they have no business getting involved in. Take that energy and put it to good use.
Yes.
Help
Yeah.
us with it. Help us
Yeah.
share positive.
Yeah.
Get news stories going
Yeah.
that are going to help this industry thrive, not just help you get clicks on a site that no one really wants to hear what you have to say because it's turning into garbage, your misinterpretations. And there's no one person I'm directing that at. I'm directing that
No.
probably at 5, 10, 20 dozen people that can be held accountable over these years for misinterpreting things that the OEMs have put out. And I just want to make sure that we fairly represent what's actually happening. Just putting it
Absolutely.
out there. People might disagree with that in the comments, and I'm okay with that. I don't have to have everybody agree with everything I say, but let's give our OEMs a fair shake at doing their best to try to, stay on track with all of this and keep it calm and keep it collected.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I always wanted to write a little booklet on the opposition theory. When I started writing about electric mobility in 2007, 2008, I heard things that my jaw fell on the floor. I was like,
I
how can you
know. It's
ask
not
such a weird question?
factual.
So one of the things I remember that struck me the most was everybody knows electric cars can go uphill. And at one point, I got so sick and tired of hearing this nonsense. I said, "You play golf?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "And you drive one of those little electric golf carts, right? And that doesn't go up a hill?" And it was like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, deer caught in the headlight moment. And it's been like that all the time. And of course, we still see that to this day. So, there's a name for these people. They're called keyboard jockeys because I want to be first to answer. I want to be. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay,
I
that's fair.
posted. I loved it. I posted something on a great YouTube channel on aviation, and I said, this is really troublesome. We have to be really careful with that. And this one guy replied to me and said, "You're overreacting!" Exclamation mark. And I was laughing. I was like, "Really?" It's just like, and you are a psychologist, or? But it's like, okay, forget it. Not interesting. I didn't even
The
really
people
read
that
it. I
are
just
doing the loudest talking are the people that don't have a horse in the race right now, and they're just sitting behind the keyboard, and that is okay. We expect
yes,
that. And again, that's
it's
not
normal.
I think it's okay. I think we're here to see it. What I'm asking for is those folks that are reposting and commenting on these I guess MOUs or whatever's being put out there, any kind of PR that's being put out there. Can you please at least be fair and accurate? If you feel the
Well,
need to do that and to be fair and accurate at least on what you're saying, because it's the same one-sided garbage depending on which side
yeah,
you're reading, and
yeah,
that's so disruptive to our industry. If we can just
it
keep to the
is.
factual information,
It is.
everybody would love that. They just want factual information. No one's asking
Absolutely.
for pomp and circumstance. They don't want that. And
And
I think we can all probably agree as a community, because really, even those folks, Nicholas, I'm sure they want to see this community, not all of them, but most of them want to see the community excel. So, let's work, let's do a little better. We can do better. We can do better.
yeah, I'd like to defy them and go, okay, well then do better. Go out there. Go get billions of dollars and go out there and do it.
That's
Okay.
right.
Until
Because let me tell
then,
you, we're doing it at FFG. It is hard. Anyone who's been
it's
through a
very
fundraiser
hard.
understands how hard it is. It's perpetual fundraising, making
It
sure
is
you're
very
doing right
hard.
by your investors. It's like you need it's a not an easy it's not an easy
No,
task. Otherwise
no.
everybody would be doing it. So let's have some grace. That's all. Let's have
Actually,
some grace.
I'm glad you said that. I will invite a dear friend of mine I've known for many decades who is very well versed in startup investments. So has done all the Silicon Valley investments, worked with Intel, worked with Amazon, and we're going to talk about that.
Good.
How difficult is it? Because every 3 months,
Yeah.
basically, the game changes, right? If you think it's
Yep.
easy to raise even $100,000, it's not easy at all. Every
No.
3 months, there's a different strategy. Every 3 months, you have to review all of that. You're a startup, you're not a company, you don't have lots of departments. You've got to do all of this all the time.
That's
It's
right.
incredibly difficult. So, yeah.
And when you're doing
And
it as an entrepreneur for yourself, that's easy. For yourself, it's like not easy, but you only have
yeah,
yourself to deal with. When you
yeah,
have partners, you only have
exactly.
yourself and your partners. When you have investors, that's a whole different
It's
animal.
it's a
And
whole
it's
different
very
animal.
important that we stay true to our investors, all of us, the OEMs, us, everybody. And so that type of damaging reporting doesn't do anybody any solid, except for maybe the person that gets a couple extra clicks by a couple extra ding dongs that don't have really a horse in the race either. So these are intelligent people that can really use their narrative for good, or at least to try to be
Yeah,
honest.
and and one thing that history has shown over and over and over again is that these people eventually nobody remembers them.
I know.
When I think of all these people who
We know
were
a
all of
couple
a
of them
sudden.
ourselves.
Boy, yeah, I feel bad for them actually more than anything, but it's true. Nobody will remember them, or there'll be not even a footnote in history. Who cares? Move on. There. You just reminded me of a really good Saharan Tuareg saying that goes something like, "The dogs bark, but the caravan moves on forward, no matter what." I'm
Yes.
paraphrasing it, but that's exactly it. You can say whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Okay.
We're still moving forward. It doesn't really matter. Those who are actually doing the things are still doing them themselves. So this is I'm happy with that part.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how do you see now the landscape specifically in operations? Because I mean, I can think of a few other companies coming up. Let's say I'm going to say it actually. Bristow, I think, is one of the ones who is the
Hmm.
most likely next
Yeah.
operator out there in this industry. What's your take on your competitive landscape out there?
Listen, we don't have a lot to look at right now as far as our competitive landscape. We have Bristow and a couple others, but again, if you look at how we do this in general aviation or in business aviation right now, our biggest competitors are also our biggest clients. So for instance,
That's true.
I have an aircraft operator that might have all Gulf Streams and I have all light jets, and their client might not need a Gulf Stream. They might need to call Tony so they can use our light jets to help facilitate their trips, right? They're not going to
Mm,
put every passenger on a Gulf Stream when the passenger only needs to go 30 minutes. So again, they will call me and say, "Hey, can we go ahead and use your aircraft?" But technically, we're competing for the same end client, right? We
yeah.
have a certain understanding in our industry right now that we're able to go ahead and supplement other operators and work very together with close together with our competitors, if you will, or our biggest
Mm,
opposition. And I don't see that. I do see that following suit in how we work together. For instance, if Bristow's operating five betas and I'm operating five betas, and they need a beta aircraft because theirs is going to be down for something or it has a different mission, and they say, "Hey, Tony, can I use yours for 60 days?" We need to cut. We're now working together on the same project, and again, that's
exactly.
very very corporate business aviation modeling. Do
Yeah,
I feel like it's all good? No, no, no. I don't feel like that's going to be the way it is, but it will follow suit, especially in the beginning when we don't have a lot of these aircraft to be able to get into, and we have a certain amount, a limited amount of eVTOL that can land in a vertical setting, and it's not an airport. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the
absolutely,
collaborative
absolutely.
use cases that we're going to bring forward together as an industry, again, competition is welcome. We want
Yeah,
competition.
yeah,
Competition means industry growth. Industry growth means success. So even people that are talking,
absolutely.
we've had this conversation. Continue to tell the story. It might not be the exact story, but as long as it's truthful, it's going to help the industry, right? So
It's very
I
true.
believe that in the very early years when we start operating, we're all going to be doing this together. The operators, I already work very close with the folks at Bristow. They're amazing people. I
Yeah,
learn
they
from
are.
them. They're going to learn from
They
us.
are.
And that goes with the OEM partners and all the other partners. The IPP program has been wonderful in connecting
Yes.
us with all of these players from these different places. I'm so grateful to have gotten to know these different players and these different ecosystem partners as we go, and they start to understand my strengths. I understand theirs. Guess what? We have solutions. It's like, boom, solutions are happening. So I already see it happening. I'm experiencing it as my reality. So other people might have a different reality, but my reality isn't just like, oh, let's sugarcoat this. And this is my reality that I'm living, and I can only share my true and honest experiences to point to date. And that's what
Yeah,
we're experiencing.
those are really good points. You're right. And the competition is always very welcome. I think the only thing that's going to happen, that most likely will happen, because it always usually kind of follows like that. The first ones out there are very agnostic, uniform, universal. So in your case, you have a lot of different aircraft and everything. The only thing I can see happening after the second or third operation company comes out is you'll start having very niche companies. Like you said, some companies only have light jets, some others only have X's, 650 ERs, and things like that. So that's probably how the landscape will evolve in the future. And since we already operate like this, we're definitely going to bring in that business model into this because, hey, it works. We know how it works. And then we can integrate AAM like that. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of different types of models. You're going to have an air taxi model, which is very critical
Yep.
to be strict. The
Yes.
regulatory side of it is
Yes.
very strict. You're moving strangers,
Yep.
technically, people that don't know each other on an aircraft.
Yep.
We have to have regulatory framework to actually start to welcome that at scale, because right now we don't. Like, if you want to sell by the seat on one particular aircraft, it's a difficult regulatory path to move through, and that will make it cumbersome. So we have a lot of work we have to do together, is what I'm saying. That we do have to go to the FAA and say, hey, in order to welcome
Yep.
this at scale, we're going to have to probably shift a little to the left or
Yep.
the right. And people are
That's
already
true.
having those conversations. It's not like out into the unknown. TSA and how it all integrates, what
Yes.
this is going to look like.
Yes.
So we, again, safe operations, aircraft
Yes.
certification. The OEMs have one job right now, is to get the aircraft certified, period. I mean, honest, the rest of us, who cares what we think? Like, they have to get the aircraft certified with the FAA, come hell or high water, in every single, no matter how much time and effort needs to go into that. So that's what they're focusing on, and it's appreciated by the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, all eyes are on the FAA and EASA, and of course, in our case, on the infrastructure side of things, ICAO is also really important. And the good news is, Robert Bassi told us not too long ago, they're all working together, which is great. We want to just leave them off. And also, another thing too is talk about criticism, right? There's a lot of criticism around the FAA, and I think it's pretty unwarranted considering where they are, how they operate, and how they're allowed to operate. I think they've done a pretty darn good job. I mean, in the 60s, they were hanging off of wings, and that was good enough to fly a 152 or 172. Today, we went up to them and say, no, no more pistons, no more turbines, in some cases, but batteries, controllers, BMS, and all of that good stuff, and electric motors. And yeah, they've done a really good job. So EB 105, what is it, B? The next one will be very interesting, and it's going to incorporate a lot of things. And I think we've talked about it already. It's going to incorporate STOL ports, which I'm thoroughly excited about. And I wanted to get your point of view on that because now we can actually successfully use a 400 to 500 foot runway and land eSTOLs and eVTOLs on them and everything. And this is fantastic. Have you guys already thought about mix integrating operations within a specific footprint? I know I'm really
So
going on the
as
deep end
long
here.
as no, first of all, Electra, absolutely love Electra. We don't have our signed agreement with Electra, but we've been in talks with them for a long time. And we are planning on putting in an order with our friends there. We love what they've brought forward. And again, I don't care where I land the plane, Nicholas. Wherever I need to land the plane, you're going to have a vertiport for me. Great. An airport. Great. A stall port. Don't care. I'm going to purchase the aircraft or I'm going to lease the aircraft, right? And put the orders in and go ahead and deploy those aircraft in these different scenarios. And honestly, I don't really care where I land them
Nope.
as long as I
Nope.
have a place to land them, no matter what that use case is. What's the different footprint for a deployment and actual operation to land at an eSTOL or a vertiport versus an airport? We'll figure that out. It's no problem. We'll get those regulations. We'll get that clarity. If there's differences that we have to look at, downwash, how we land, we know what that looks like already. And when we set these vertiports and stall ports up, they're going to be clearly under the guise of making sure of FAA and everybody else who's involved to make sure that they're ready for somebody like me to come in. Now, in the beginning, I spent a lot of time doing consulting on charging stations and what that's going to look like from that part. And since I started FFG over the years, I've moved away from that consulting, but I have a very good understanding of those, what that looks like for us. And what not just me, our whole team at FFG is our job is to operate the aircraft safely, to move passengers and goods back and forth, and to make sure that wherever we are, there's safety attached to either side of it. Wherever we land, you build it, we will come
Yeah,
if we're
absolutely.
going to be
Well said.
working in that area, like if you're going to put somewhere in the middle of somewhere where don't, but like, where we're working, our company is heavily focused on Florida. We're focused on Northern California, Texas. We're focused on Utah, Michigan. We have some work going on upstate New York. We're looking at right now. Virginia is a place we're looking at.
Good.
And so each of these areas have very different footprints and where
Yes.
they are and what we're going to
Yes.
bring forward. And each of them, we may be bringing different use cases in depending on what they are. But it's okay. It doesn't matter to me as long as I can keep the same framework and I can keep operationally sound and legal and compliant and safe. We're good to
Right.
go. Let's get it done.
Yep.
Easy
It's gonna
breezy.
be it's gonna be interesting to see also how you integrate with, mobility on the ground, with
Yes, that's
vehicles,
where it gets
with
fun.
maritime, with all of the railroad and everything. I know SkyDrive's done finally such a great job at really unleashing the potential of AAM, and that's really to connect all these little dots. How do you connect a vertiport or a multiport to a metro station or to a seaport or something like that? This is going to be really interesting to see how you guys go about that, and maybe you already have some thoughts on that topic.
We love multimodal. I mean, that's our future goal. Listen,
Of
that's
course.
what the name of this game is, change the footprint. What we're talking about today is a lot of phase one, what to get it to start it. But eventually, when you and I start to retire and we're just going around finishing up, doing talks all over the world, because that's where we'll be, they'll be dragging us everywhere by the
Exactly.
foot.
That's true.
I want to see the Regent Seacraft,
Yeah.
which we haven't chatted much
Yes.
about. I want to see the Electra go to the Seacraft, and I want to see them moving packages and goods. I want to see them moving passengers, connecting, really, really connecting from the ground or the sea for that matter up. We haven't even had so much fun as to dive into a lot of that research on that connectivity. We're working in small silos to try to figure that out. But these IPP programs and even programs outside of that we're getting into, these grant programs, the executive orders coming out a couple months ago. I mean,
Oh,
amazing. It opens up
yes.
doors to a
Yes.
lot
Yes.
of
Yes. Yes.
use case funding that can help us
Yes.
understand how we're going to do this so we can start to figure out what that looks like on the ground. But in the next 3 years, as we go through these programs as a group with the different states, depending on who wins the IPPs, and also with our private research that we're doing between universities and states and companies, we're going to get this all figured out. I mean, we have a lot
Yes.
of it figured out already. So to me, it's just research and fun and exploratory. And because we know we're going to have solutions, it just gets me excited. It's just a matter of deciding how we're going to get there and what's the road to get to those solutions
Yes.
in the best, safe, and economical manner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Wait till we see what this looks like in 10 or 15 years. It's not going to be
gosh, it's
something we
gonna
recognize, and I can't
no,
wait
it's
to
not gonna
see it.
be yeah, it's gonna be very different from what we think it
Yeah.
will be. And you're right. I think there's not enough said about these flying boats or electric flying boats as they used to be called.
Flying boats.
Yeah, they used to be called flying boats. I always love that idea of a flying boat. It's like, oh, interesting. But that's exactly what they are.
Maritime mobility is what we like to call it.
Maritime mobility, exactly. But you're right, connecting Boston to New York. And guess what? There's no infrastructure need because they land on the rivers directly. Then New York to Washington, D.C. I mean, all of it makes perfect sense. Savannah, we've got a lot of waterways around here, obviously Florida and all these things. I got to get the guys from Regions to come here and explain that a little bit. We touched upon it with David Eisen for the state of Washington and of course also Vancouver, all these places where you have a lot of, harbor air is pretty present out there.
Water, yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and it is the opening of
They're great. You should
multi-mobility.
definitely get them on the podcast.
I
They're
have
just
to, yeah.
really amazing folks. They're innovators, and that's the other thing because everyone you're working with right now is an innovator. So the
Yes.
energy level, people are like, Tony, how are you always going? How are you keeping the energy level? Like, I'm surrounded by
Yes,
wild innovators. Even if everything I'm
that's
hearing,
true.
it's something new, it's something creative. That energy flows right to me, these innovators sharing their dreams and me understanding what the dream is for the people at Region or for the people at Electra and being able to exercise their dream out as an
Yes,
operator. This is real.
yes.
This is not just like, hey, we're throwing a couple of hope this sticks. No, like they're
No,
dreaming it and I'm exercising it
no.
to reality. So
Yeah,
that's a huge lift on our part as FFG, but
yep.
we're ready for it. We can do it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
my
a great
sweet
point you
spot.
made. Yeah, it's the sweet spot. You're right, and that is the motivation, and it's also like a hat tip to these people who walk away from these very lofty jobs in big companies. They could easily retire and do nothing, right? But
Yeah.
no, they decide to
No,
do
it
the
is.
most incredibly insane thing, and it's to start from an idea. And I mean, look at this. Who in the world would have ever thought that that would fly? And it does, and it flies, and it's wonderful, and it
Right?
works. But they walked away from lofty jobs with great compensations, and they said, "No, you know what? I have this itch. I have this curiosity. There's this insatiable desire to do something different, and they're making it happen." And you're right; it is so exhilarating being with people like that, and us already being like this. Our internal infrastructure is such that we piggyback on each other and we get the ball
Yep.
going. But
And
certainly
you're
helps
right
with
about
the
that.
down moments, right?
We sometimes think to ourselves, Karan and I, over the years, last 3 years we've been at this, and we're like, we gave up. I mean, private aviation is a very lucrative business, aircraft
It is.
sales, charter, we know
It is
this. And sometimes we look at each other like, did we really just stop doing that so we could run towards the train? Like, what are we thinking? But that's innovation. And because we share that and we understand the other side of it, the innovators that are also creating this also share that, and there's alignment. We didn't just buy or put
no.
aircraft orders in. We decided to partner with the companies that we're purchasing aircraft with for the reasons I just said, meaning we're taking your life, everything you've envisioned, and we're bringing it to life in a safe way. And you're trusting us to do that. And we appreciate the trust that we have with our OEM partners, and we don't take that lightly.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So let's move into the more personal aspect of what we're doing actually right now. And you're
Okay.
the perfect person for the segment we've had for a very long time called Women in Mobility. So I'd
Okay.
like to ask you about your motivation. We just barely hinted at it. We
Yes.
touched upon it. What is your motivation? What gets you out of bed in the morning and makes you show up to work with such energy and enthusiasm?
It's a true passion and love for what I do. I have been an aviation junkie since it didn't grow up
It's
that
true.
way. But it's
No.
when I started at the airport at Teterboro in the mid 90s and I realized there was this whole other world out there, I was sucked right into it. I immediately had VIP accounts and big music tours. It was flashy and wild. I
Yeah.
never knew anything else other than that. And so that motivation of being able to be like on that side of it, the very VVIP side, a couple years in, I started there's people picketing around the airport. You really realize what kind of footprint you're putting forward. Like we were
Yeah.
spending a lot of
Yep.
money on fuel. We're really not cost effective and efficient in the way that we do things. And that's not what the industry represented. So that was early in my career. Once I started understanding that there could possibly be a bridge to sustainability, I was yanked in. And that started with drones. When I didn't know
Yep.
anything about Uber Elevate or anything like that yet. When I first started getting involved in drones, my interest level was very organic. But once I started going down that pathway, my eyes were open to, oh man, this is the future. And this is the offset, the yin to the yang of what I've done for the majority of my career, which is burn fossil fuels in the air. Now I can do something to offset that. Is it going to be a complete offset? Heck no. But am I doing my part? Some people buy sustainable aviation fuel. Some people buy an electric car. Some people do what they have to do to bring down their footprint. This is my way to help others bring their footprint down in a certain way or just do better. And it's just one little way to look at it. There's lots of different recipes that, lots of different ingredients to come in to build the overall recipe, right? But to me, this is just one small thing that I feel like I can do as an individual that can start to offset maybe a little bit of how I used to do it in the past. So I love moving forward with sustainability. And that's why it was important for us to start specific FFG instead of just doing everything all together. Like, let's focus on the research behind how we're going to bring this forward and how we want to present to the public and how we need to tell the conversation and focus on the things like communities. What do the communities need? Listen to the things that the
Yes.
educators need in the schools. This is part of the recipe. So, FFG is very, very involved with multiple universities. We're coming up with some packages that we can bring forward for the universities to keep them updated, some to augment what they're currently teaching to make sure that they're
Yep.
staying up to date.
Yep.
FFG's also brought in a couple of really amazing consultants that are working closely with us right now on salary or retainer with us, which is Clint, Michelle. We have a couple of
Oh,
others that are
good.
working with us.
Good.
Yeah, Michelle
Good. Good.
Duquette.
Good.
And again, those folks have brought in these really, really specific expertise in their circles. So having these multiple subject matter experts all embedded within FFG has been a huge feather in our cap. And I'm so grateful for it because we were doing most of it ourselves last year and it was a lot. So I'm so grateful to have the
Yes.
help.
Yes. Absolutely.
But yeah, that's part of the messaging, behind how I feel.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that because that was basically you're leading to my next question is if there are any younger people, whether they're in universities, high schools, or even pre high schools, what would be the one thing you would like to let them know about our
Hmm.
industry in general? Because it's a big and wide
Yeah.
industry.
What I'm going to recommend to anybody who's either in high school or going into college right now is to start opening up your mind outside of whatever it is you're going into. So, what I mean by that is if you're going into be a pilot, there's other technologies that are coming in that you can also learn about while you're in school that will really complement you as a pilot, i.e., getting a drone license, i.e., getting a dispatcher's license. Like, there's other things that you can do. Maybe that's a bad example, but you know what I mean? There's other things that you can do that can definitely help while you're learning, concurrent learning. That would be what I would call it. Our last conversation that we had in person, which was what at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University out of
Yep,
Prescott. We had a live session with the folks there. We had a lot of students. We also had a lot of professors in there that were really interested in learning
yep.
more. And what
Sarah
I was trying,
Nelson, who was on this
yes,
podcast before, Becky Leedy
she's
too,
amazing.
fantastic,
They're
wonderful,
such a
amazing
great,
ladies.
yeah, we have a great group up there. And so the students there, I was trying to let them understand the different technologies that are going to start coming up. So if you can just learn a little bit about some of these technologies coming in, now you're making yourself a subject matter expert within your
Mhm.
own space. You might be a pilot that specializes in this, or a mechanic that specializes in this, or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you really want to understand what can I do with the electric aircraft moving forward? How does that work? So what we're trying to figure out now with a lot of the schools is how to bring that education in because obviously the funding is not always there. Our time is not always, we can only do a certain amount of in kind work
Yep,
before it, it,
yep,
it pulls from us.
yep,
So
yep,
we're having a hard time trying to figure that out. But once we get the balance and we start to understand some funding opportunities for research and working
absolutely.
with them, I think we're going to move past that. It has been wildly I mean, I can't tell you how many schools we have, at least a dozen right now that are like,
Yep.
help. We don't
Yep.
understand how to update our drone program. We don't understand how to bring reality into what's going on with the future aircraft. And because there's still this sense of, oh, they're not certified. Is this really going to happen? I mean,
Yeah.
because we're still getting a bit of that narrative for some from some uneducated folks out there,
Yep. Yep.
that sets unfortunately puts some of these folks I'm not really sure what to do yet. By the time they move over to education, they're going to be 3 years behind. So we want
Yeah.
to make sure that
Yes.
universities and students have the opportunity to learn concurrently the technologies coming in to aviation that are not here today but will be there tomorrow. And pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, that's something that you and I have always agreed on. Education is really the key to advance air mobility right now as we speak
It
in
is.
2025 and going into 2026
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
above and
right.
everything.
And save your thoughts because I'll call you in for some of these panels that and these live presentations that we're doing. We're
I
getting a really, really good
I
response
sure
to
hope
them.
so. That's the one thing that I've noticed is you and I are doing kind of like the same things that I'm talking to Embry-Riddle. I'm talking to Georgia Tech. We're talking to, my God, Cranfield. I mean, all of these places, and it's like we're all thinking the same thing. How do we do that? SCAD right here in Savannah, we're talking about it. So yeah, we probably need to unify our efforts a little
Offline, I
bit. But
think I've got a little aggregation thing I'm working on behind the scenes. We'll talk about that
there you go.
offline
Bingo,
because
bingo,
we
bingo.
have
Yep.
to,
Yep.
Nicholas, and including that, including internships, including possibilities.
Yeah, and you know what just happened here, by the way, for those of you who are watching or listening to us, is something that happens very often in our industry. We talk. We talk and we exchange
We
our
do.
stories, and we're like, "Hey, you know what? You're a perfect fit for blah 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 blah," and then we launch projects. Not all of them happen, that's just the way things are, but some of them do happen. So what you've just seen right here is something that is so exciting about our industry, and this is why we invite you to join this industry, because this is how you make things happen, not by just typing on a keyboard, and that's all fine and dandy. Everybody needs to do that too, but get in there, roll up your sleeve, get your nails dirty. It's so much fun being in here.
It
So
is.
anyway,
It is.
Toni, I wanted to thank you for finally being here right now. Remember, it's an open invitation. Please come back whenever you want. There's
I
still so
will.
many
I'll be
other
back next year.
questions. Okay, good, because there's still so many other questions I need to ask you, and I love your enthusiasm. I look forward to having you again on The Ways We Move. I
Thanks,
want to
Nicholas.
thank you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. It's been a joy to know you over the years, to talk to you, and to have you on this podcast.
Thank you. That's so sweet. The feeling is very mutual, and I had a great time chatting with you as I always do, except this time we just recorded it.
Yes. Wow.
That's
Very
really
well
what it
said. By
is.
the way, I think that's one thing I love about this podcast is, this is
Very
really
true.
how we are. There's no pretense. I
Yeah.
don't script anything. I wish
No.
I could
No.
sometimes. I'm like, oh, I forgot to.
There's nothing in front of me. We're totally off the cuff. I didn't have to write anything down. We know who we are. I enjoy all of our
There you go.
conversations, and congratulations on the success of your podcast. I'll be sure to share it with my network, and
Thank you.
I wish you a lot of success into 2026. Good health as well to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear. And for all of you listening or watching us, please like, share, subscribe, and let us know, what do you think? Has your idea of advanced air mobility changed at all? Has Toni sparked something, an interest in you? We'd love to hear from you. And by the way, if you work in the railroad industry, the maritime industry, or anything that's electric mobility related, we'd love to hear from you guys. And in the meantime, we'll see you next week again. Thank you all.